Hi, everyone. I'm Gena Philibert Ortega for Genealogy Bank. It's the holidays, and you know what the holidays mean. It means food. And so this is a time where we think about our family food traditions. We eat favorite food. Maybe we even eat foods that have been handed down by the generations. But maybe you're not so lucky. Maybe you loved your great grandmother's pumpkin pie, but she didn't write it down. And so now you're kind of wondering, where did she get that and what was that secret ingredient? Well, one way that you could find a similar recipe is to look in historical newspapers. Now, we are going to go to Genealogy Bank's historical newspaper collection, and we're going to do two things. We're going to look specifically for a recipe, a historical recipe, and then we're going to look for more general holiday foods and how to search by keywords versus searching by an ancestor's name. So let's go to the Genealogy Bank website and see what we can find when we look for historical recipes. So we're on the Genealogy Bank website, and let's talk a little bit about searching for a recipe or holiday food in the search, because we're used to searching by a name, right? Or an ancestral surname or something like that. And the way the search engine looks is it asks for a name. So how are we going to do this? Well, use this first name box and go ahead and search on a holiday food. And I'm going to choose pumpkin pie. That's a good holiday food. Now I'm going to stay with the simple search, although you don't have to. You could go to this advanced search and you could add a date or a year range. You know, if your great grandmother was only making these pumpkin pies from 1950 to 1975, then go ahead and put that date range. Maybe she was influenced by recipes from the newspaper during that time period. You can add keywords like recipe or some other word that has to do with the recipe you remember. If you were doing a more general search like holiday food, you could do something like pies. So you could do first name, do holiday food, and then in keywords you could do pies. Now, I could also narrow it down by a place, but let's go ahead and just start with that simple search. So let's go ahead and search. Okay, so here we are, and we have over 235,000 articles that mention pumpkin pie. That's a lot, right? So we already, decided to go with that simple search. So let's look at how can we narrow or focus this down to what we want. Well, we could add a keyword, and we talked about that before. We can even exclude a keyword. Let's say we want to exclude custard. Maybe we don't want any pumpkin custard or pumpkin soup or anything like that. Strictly pumpkin pie. We can do that date range that I talked about. I could even say, you know what? My great grandma, she spent most of her life in California, and so I only want newspapers from California. And I could even narrow it down to the county that she lived in, because she would have been influenced by those newspapers. She wouldn't have been influenced by a newspaper in Massachusetts. She's living in California. And you can see that if I did right off the bat narrow it to California, there's only 10,000 hits. So that might be helpful if I wanted to do that. Now, the other way I could, take a look at this search and find what I want is I could do the sort by feature. Now, right now, it's showing relevance. So the search engine has decided what's relevant to what I searched for. And so it's providing me all kinds of articles that it feels is relevant. But I don't have to do it that way. I could, if I wanted to get maybe an older recipe, maybe I wanted to see what's the first pumpkin pie recipe. I could do oldest publication date, and that allows me to sort my results chronologically. And that might be something I'm interested in, especially if I'm doing something where I'm interested in the history of a recipe or the history of a food, like fruitcake, for example. I actually used this recently when I wrote an article for the blog on the recipe for goodbye turkey. I went ahead and sorted it by oldest publication date so I could ascertain when was the first time it was in print. Now, I could also use newest publication date. So maybe I don't want old pumpkin pie recipes. I just want the latest. What are people doing now? Then I could sort it by that. Or I could sort it by what's been most recently added. So there's a few different things that I could do with this search so I can narrow it down. Now, let's go ahead and do one more search. So let's go back to the home page. And let's do Thanksgiving menu and search. So this is going to bring up all kinds of articles. It's going to bring up menus at restaurants. It's going to bring up recipes. It's going to bring up, what they're serving at different institutions. So this is where I might want to put in a keyword like recipe. And so we'll update the results. So that narrowed it down quite a bit, as you can see. It's now down to 2,400. And like I said, maybe I want to go ahead and say California, so I can update those results. And now that I'm at California, I could then narrow it down to where I've had family live. So for example, I could choose Riverside, and there's only 9 results for that. So I could do that, and that would get me down to the newspapers that they were familiar with. Now let's just go ahead and choose one of our articles. And you can see here is something, it's about Thanksgiving. It provides some recipes, and it might be something that I want to look at maybe for me to incorporate into my holiday meal. Maybe it's something that I remember from holiday meals that my family partook of in 1977. It could be all kinds of things. So when we look for holiday recipes, we're looking for a few reasons. We're looking to incorporate into our own meals today. We're looking for things that we remember and want to find. We're also maybe perhaps looking for a recipe that our female ancestor used to use, or maybe even something that she contributed to the newspaper. I hope that gave you some ideas about how you can search for something other than personal mentions of an ancestor. You know, newspapers provide us such great context for our ancestors' lives, way beyond just information about their individual lives. And looking for things like historical recipes can help us tell the story of our families, and it can let our younger generations know more about the generations that have passed. So take some time, look in historical newspapers, and see if you can find those family favorites. I'll see you next time.